through AI, again, citizens are more interested in politics. Yes, through AI, citizens are more interested in politics. They want to know what's going on. You know, when AI was not this common, people didn't know what actually was happening. So the politician, you know, who is aware of every situation may use the opportunity to come to those who are not technologically inclined to deceive them, to tell them what they do not know. Information was not that readily available for people's consumption, but these days information is everywhere. With the click of a button, you can get information from everywhere, and this is a very good thing as far as, you know, information sharing and citizen voices, you know, contributions to political issues and policy issues and concerned is a very good thing. Yeah.
Also, you mentioned a good point about how the people or citizen can engage in policy making through social media or platform, because I'm also looking about it that there are many platforms here in many countries that the people can share their policy ideas.
Exactly.
And other people also can leave comments or vote.
Yeah.
They think, okay, this is a good policy idea or not.
Welcome to Our Great Experiment. I'm Daniel Egamo. Today I am pleased to share a conversation I had with two PhD scholars in public affairs, Niki and Elvis. Through conversation on the transformative power of AI in government, the critical role of global cooperation, and the future of global policy, I hope that this conversation will challenge your perspective and make you think more critically about the issues that are going to define our lives. It certainly changed the way I think of a lot of these issues, especially our conversations on social media and my fear of AI. I hope you enjoy this conversation. As always, my email is ourgreatexperiment2025@gmail.com. Niki, Elvis, it's great to see you. How are both of you doing?
Very well.
Great to see you, Danny.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to have you both on for a conversation, and I look forward to seeing what we discuss. Just as kind of an introduction, both of you are PhD scholars in political science and public affairs, and I'm curious if you could share a bit about what drew you to these fields. What made you want to go into a PhD program, and what are your research interests?
Okay, I can start. I'm studying PhD in public affairs, but in my bachelor, I studied law. And then I also, in my master degree, I studied human rights law and multi-level governance. So it's a bit different, but I think in law, we usually learn about the rules, regulations, or policy. But now I decided to study public affairs because I can see how the government implement policy actually in practice, or why some policy fail or why some policy succeed. And I think I can bridge between theory and practice. So I decided to study PhD in public affairs, and my research interest is more about the technology, AI, and public policy or public administration. Firstly, I usually work about how the government can use AI, especially local government in the US, whether they use AI or not, and which factor cause local governments use AI, like political factors or capacity. Many factors are important here. And also, as you know, especially today, maybe we try to study, can we use AI instead of doing a lot of paperwork or not? Because, for example, if the street level bureaucrats wants to decide this person is eligible for this program or not, can also AI assist human or not in public administration? And my research is about the technology, or even the digital platform, and how they can help government and public administrator or street level bureaucrats.
What about you, Elvis?
Well, I also started my bachelor's in political science. I studied political science with philosophy at the University of Ghana. Then I proceeded to Russia National University, that's a High School of Economics, to pursue my master's degree there in public policy. And then I came over here to study a PhD in public affairs. So yes, I have always been fascinated about the nexus between institutions, government institutions, and the well-being of people. So growing up in my little village, I saw how connected government structures were affecting the lives of people every day, especially in the health sector, education, and other public services. So I have always been driven into this um, field of political science and public affairs simply because I want to pursue a research that will be connected directly to the welfare of people globally. So yes, my research interest is actually in accountability. Yeah, specifically in the health sector, where I am looking at how accountable people that are given the mandate to carry out their duties, how accountable they are to those who they serve, who come to them for service delivery. So yes, uh, there's in a way this to me I believe is going to be a great contribution to humanity because health is something that everybody needs, yeah, in their life. So a healthy life is a lifelong worth living. So I look forward to all the opportunities I will get. Studying here, it is really a great opportunity to be here in USU. I'm having all the wonderful professors and we have cohorts. I believe that I'm really going to make an impact on society, um, both in the US here and back home in Africa, West Africa, where I come from.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. I find it fascinating how relevant both of your research interests are to not only modern global politics, but also the future, right? When we think about, uh, health implementation, AI, these conversations are going to dominate global politics for the next decades. But before we kind of explore those further, what exactly do you want to do with your degrees, right? A lot of people obtain PhDs to teach at the university level. What are you both hoping to accomplish?
I usually, honestly, I like to be in academia and teach because also during these 3 years or around 2 years, I was TA and I really like to teach. But still, I also like to work in industry because usually I take a lot of method course and I think it can help me a lot. So I like both of them, but my first priority is in academia because I like to teach more than industry.
Yes, I think I believe academia is an interesting field to be. Um, More especially with what I want to do. That I it entails a lot of research. We are lacking a lot of data back home in Africa, West Africa, for example. We lack a lot of data when it comes to issues with public health, education, and all that. So being in academia will open up uh, the opportunities for me to be able to engage in research, rigorous research that will help that will translate into policies later on, in future. With through research, I will be able to have the opportunity to either give an advice on policies to my country, the government, or across other jurisdictions. So I believe, I think starting with academia, and transcending into other fields will be a priority and something that I would like to do. So for now, I am fixated in working in the field of academia, and later, who knows, future will determine our destinies.
Yes.
So once my future is determined, or my destiny is determined, where I will be, there I will go.
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
it's unbelievable how much going into academia teaching can really help scholars refine their own perspectives, because when you're having to engage in policy conversations or substantive conversations about the literature, you're having to refine your arguments, your positions, how you understand the topics to
Yes.
students, right? Because you're the expert in the matter, you have to truly understand it. So I guess where I kind of want to go from here is I don't have one question. I have a lot of different ideas, and I'll try to frame it into a coherent question. But when we think about the world of research right now, especially in public affairs and political science generally, there's a debate I've had with many people about whether or not current scholarship in 2025 is too methodologically oriented, right? We talked about methods. Do you think research has a true impact on policy and policy adoption, policy implementation? Or is research too complicated for the average lawmaker? Has research become too focused on methods, statistics, and not enough accessibility for lawmakers to truly understand?
In my opinion, research can have positive impact on policy adoption or the policy implementation. Because, for example, the government may adopt several policy, and so the researcher can adopt some method, can import a method, and they can understand whether this policy contribute people or not. So we can understand, is this policy helpful or not? But here, the problem here, as you also mentioned, I think sometimes it's more complicated for people or policymakers to understand what are the method, what are how they found these results. So I think scholars or we as researcher, we should just talk about our findings, our research more clearly. And also we can just talk about, okay, this is our theory, this is our assumption, this is our method, and this is also our results or findings. But we should just talk about our results, our research clearly, and we can say, okay, we proved this and we cannot prove this one. And also this is the limitation of our research, because I know maybe when we just read some papers, they have some difficult or complicated methodology, and sometimes it's also difficult for the street level bureaucrats or policymakers or people. And I think we can just talk about our method or finding more clearly and maybe simpler. But as a whole, I think it's really important, because as we also studied a lot about some policy in health, like education, we can see that when the scholars research about the specific policy, they can see this policy is helpful or not. It can contribute people or not. So it can also help government or policymakers, because they want to spend their budget for a specific policy. And if we inform the people or policymaker that, okay, this policy is not helpful, it's better to not continue this policy. Or, for example, the early childhood for kids is really good policy. It can help, it can increase kids' performance. So we can do that. I think scholars or researchers can do government or policymakers, but here the important thing is that they should just communicate with them more clearly and better. This is my idea. Yes.
Well, I think a blend between policymakers and scholars would be a very important topic of discussion or thing to consider because most often than not, politics engages in negotiations, more. It strives on negotiations more than maybe really depending on evidence-based information to do things. The best way to negotiate, the more you can negotiate as a government official will determine your eligibility to continue to be in office or stay in office. But if politicians work hand in hand with scholars, because scholarship can actually provide the framework on which politicians can thrive better. So, for instance, if scholars based on grounded research that they have done and provide a very solid framework for politicians. They will be able to advise them on how to navigate trade-offs, and also how to work on or mitigate unintended consequences in terms of policy formulation and all that. Because the policy process involves a lot of stages. And the stages in policy process, we call them the policy cycle. So it moves from one stage to the other. From when the policy was conceived or the idea was conceived to when it is being implemented and evaluated. So things like Nikki mentioned, if things don't go well with a policy policy that is being passed, then we have to revisit. We have to find out what went wrong. How do we need to improve this policy? Do we need to take off things? Do we need to add other things to make the policy better or not? And all these things will depend on scholars, will depend on academics, people who work with research, who do diligent research to be able to come out with solutions. Because it will take a scholar to be able to determine whether a policy truly worked well or it didn't work well because of the evaluation, the knowledge of the evaluation and implementation that they have. So most often than not, we see politicians working with the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats are trained to do the work of, they are trained in terms of policy, right? But the politicians, most of them are not actually knowledgeable in this field. So it is always, to me, I think it's better for the two parties to work together to ensure that good policies are translated to the well-being of society.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that, right? The disconnect between lawmakers and academics, because I can only speak to the context within the United States. But I can assure you that lawmakers, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, are not reading the APSR. Right.
Uh-huh.
They're not reading scholarly work on American politics regarding their topics, right? They're bounded by their time. Lawmakers simply don't have enough time. And so I think a lot of this is contingent on how professionalized an agency is, our legislature is. If a lawmaker, an elected official, has more staff around them, maybe they have a better chance of using academic research to inform their votes, their proposals, than a lawmaker in a body that is not professionalized, that is limited on time, resources, staffing. And so I'm glad you bring that up. But shifting kind of maybe more to a topic-based conversation, generally speaking, when you think about policies, whether it's at the international level or in an individual country, when you think of the future, are you optimistic about global cooperation and addressing issues that need to be addressed?
I think the future is bright and the future would be dependent on more global cooperation. We recently saw the outbreak of this COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, it was a shock to the whole world. And the way countries and leaders of various countries came together to, draft policies against the fight of COVID was was really something that should be commendable. And going forward, I believe that um, many things of that sort would be happening in on our global stage in terms of thinking futuristically about unintended things that would are bound to hit the world. So yes, with that being said, I think the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, actually opened up more research, and governments are undertaking more research in various areas to be able to contain things like this that are unforeseen. So yes, I think there will be a greater collaboration in terms of working on a lot of research to ensure that if things like this happen, they can be contained and lives will not be lost. Because without research and without collaborations, I believe if not for collaborations, for instance, in Africa, we didn't have the drugs, we didn't have the vaccines to be able to contain the situation. There would have been a lot of quarantine issues, that there would have been a lot of dev tools and all that, increasing dev tools. But with collaborations with other countries, the US, China, Russia, we got donations from these countries, which also helped our situation. And later on, even though we went through some economic stress due to the lockdowns and what have you, but with this collaborations, with intergovernmental collaborations, we're able to come out of it. And today, um, 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 our governments are also trying to build some systems that will be able to contain situations like this going forward in the future. So I believe governmental collaborations, in every aspect of our lives these days matter a lot. So yeah.
Yes, I think also you made a good point. You mentioned good example about the COVID, because during COVID, personally, I thought that we never go back to our ordinary life again.
Yeah.
But after that, when all the countries collaborated with each other, they could solve this problem. And
Sure.
personally, I also believe that, especially due to advancement in technology, the governments and countries can collaborate better, and we can have more and more global policy. For example, I know that in economy now, so there may be some gap between developing and developed countries, but I know that in economy they want to adopt a policy to make them more closer. Or even, I know, as you also mentioned in COVID, and also in my topic, I know that we know that now the use of AI is more and more common, and
Yeah.
especially in some countries, especially European countries, I see that there are they adopt many rules, regulations, or policy regarding AI, because now it's becoming more and more common, and also it can raise some concern about fairness, legitimacy, and privacy. And I'm not sure, but I think Europe is European countries are one of those countries who adopted really good and comprehensive framework about the use of AI. And
Yeah.
so I think other countries, also US, Russia, and also all countries in the world, can see the Euro or other countries, and they can see how they can adopt these policies about the use of AI. Or as
Sure.
I mentioned, or there are many examples like climate change. But personally, I think, especially due to technological advancements, they can collaborate better, and I'm so optimistic about it.
Yeah. That's true. I just I just want to add a quick one, because with the AI that you mentioned, AI is really doing a very good job back home, if I mentioned back home in Africa, because it is AI. Through AI, we're able to connect with the rest of the world. There are
Yes,
certain things that the youth are now engaged in. And should you look back maybe in 5 years ago or 10 years ago,
yes,
we were
yes.
not privy, we were not aware, the youth was not aware of a lot of things that are happening right now on the global
Yes.
stage. So AI is really a very great transformative tool, and through that, I believe that the world is now fully globally connected. Yeah,
Yes.
fully globally connected, because you can sit at the comfort of your home anywhere and look at how we are interacting. Like we are we are talking to each other one on one, but this is through AI. And it's really a great tool that connects the world. And I believe that
Yes.
better things will come out of AI. And you going into the field of AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also in policy, for example, you can see the policy adopted by different countries
Mhm.
and see, okay, is it helpful? It can also
Yeah.
helpful for our country or not. For
Mhm.
example, we as a scholar, we can see some policy adopted by US in
Yeah,
healthcare or education,
exactly.
health
So
insurance, and then we can go back to our
great.
country and can see,
Good.
okay, maybe we can apply this policy to our
Excellent.
country.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Research has actually shown that through some literature review that I did, I realized that um, uh, experiments show that governance can actually be both responsive and democratic. Responsive in the sense that, taking care, being capable of taking care of the needs of the people, be responsive to the needs of the people, and still give the opportunities to people to contribute to decision making, and to give them the opportunities to partake in whatever governance issues that come up. So yes,
Yes.
with tools like with innovations like AI tools, yes, people can participate. People's voice can be heard. I sit at the comfort of my home and write an article, post it on Facebook or on
Yes.
Twitter. Yes, government official comes across it, and then they take, maybe he reads it and he's interested in it. So that alone, that is my little contribution to any policy issue, right? And now through AI again, citizens are more interested in politics. Yes, through AI, citizens are more interested in politics. They want to know what's going on. When AI was not this common, people didn't know what actually was happening. So the politician, who is aware of every situation, may use the opportunity to come to those who are not technologically inclined, to deceive them, to tell them what they do not know. Information was not that readily available for people's consumption. But these days, information is everywhere. With the click of a button, you can get information from everywhere. And this is a very good thing as far as information sharing and
Yes.
citizen voices, contributions to political issues and policy issues are concerned, is a very good thing. Yeah.
And also, you mentioned a good point about how the people or citizen can engage in policy making through social
Yes.
media or platform. Because I'm also
Yes.
thinking about it that there are many platforms here
Mhm.
in many countries that the people can share their policy ideas,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
other people also can leave comments or vote.
Mhm. Yeah.
They think, okay, this is a good policy idea or not. And
Yes.
usually the government can see what
Yeah.
are people's priority or what topic
Exactly.
are
Yes.
mostly raised. The people
Yes.
care about more healthcare,
Hmm.
education. So
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of platforms and social media that
Yeah.
the people can also share their policy ideas. So the government can see and what are the people's priority in my
Good.
country.
Yeah. Yes. I think social media commentaries actually shape policies. They have the power to
Yes.
shape policies. There will be a policy, government has maybe passed a policy, and the policy is not doing well. But with the commentaries that people make on social media, can influence the government to go and revisit the policy to make it better. You
Yes.
see, so but without those commentaries coming from social media, yes, maybe government may just assume that people are enjoying the project. and may leave it that way. But with social media commentaries, they are able to restructure or revisit the program to either improve it or even drop it entirely. So I
Yes.
believe social media is actually a very powerful tool that shapes policy in our current dispensation.
Yes. It's more
It's
accept.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring that up, right? The social
Yes.
media comments having an influence on lawmakers' perceptions of what they ought to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay. My question would be, A, who's reading these comments, right? And B, is there a worry then that, say, to put it in a context I'm familiar with, if the governor of California, a Democrat, reads comments on their social media, they're likely to be filled with like-minded people. Those following the governor are likely to probably share similar policy goals or policy preferences. Is there a danger then basing policy off of social media comments for being biased?
Well, I think yes, a state governor or a politician may have his own followership, but that notwithstanding, some people are also following him that do not align with his ideology. So those are the people who are going to make sure that they put the politician in line by constructive criticism. So criticizing a policy constructively will will is always in a way speaking to the politician to realize the shortfalls of a set policy. So yes, social media commentaries are very important. We might always think that the politicians are not reading; they are actually reading, and they are making decisions based on those comments that we make. So no comment on social media is useless. Yes, unless it is maybe abusive. But once it is constructively, made, your point is made, people are reading, and people are reading meaning into what you have written. So that alone can influence a policy decision going forward. So I believe that social media commentaries are very important in our political and policy landscape. They shape policies every day. Governments decide to do other things or to reform policies based on things that they have read on social media or based on videos and things that they have seen on social media. The social media is very powerful, and it is a very powerful platform that influences current policies in globally on a global stage.
I also wanted to add that yes, I think also social media has some bias because, firstly, as you mentioned, politicians maybe not read all the comments in social media. Secondly, sometimes all the people do not make comments on social media. Maybe some people don't care about it or maybe don't have access to social media, so they don't share their policy idea, they don't share their concern about the topic. And also we have this bias. Especially we have this bias in some platforms that I mentioned that the people can share their policy idea. Some people do not have access to internet, or some people are not informed of existence of these platforms. So there is a bias because if we just read the social media or we just read these participation platform, we cannot say that this is people concern, this is people priority, because there is bias. And also, I think we can do other several methods, like we can do survey and ask people about their policy concern. And I wanted to add that the scholars or researcher can really use from social media and platform with some machine learning method, because there are some machine learning methods like NLP, and they can do some method and see what are the people's concern, what are the topic are mostly raised. A scholar researcher can help here a lot, because they can use some method, do some research method, and also help policymaker or politicians say, okay, this topic like healthcare, the people usually care about this topic, and they also they also provide some solution for this problem, because in social media, the people usually also provide some solution for each problem, maybe. So we can use some method for some research method like NLP, and then we can understand and help policymaker or politician. But still, I think in social media or this platform, but there is bias, and I think it's not. These platforms cannot represent a broad population, and maybe we can do also other method or other research method to see what are people's concept.
Yes.
What?
I just want to add something to it. She mentioned, the bias. It's true because there are political platforms all over. You know, some platforms are specifically made for political parties, some political group of people, right? So you will have the followership. You know, people who sympathize with that political party will always be there to comment. If it is a criticism, they will all be criticizing a certain policy because they belong to that party. Uh-huh. But you will also have people who are on the same plan, who come on the same platform to counter the arguments that the sympathizers are making. So with that kind of counter, those debates actually, speak a lot to policy information or policy formulation. So the bias will always come, but the counter arguments that come after the bias, it's also something that can cure our political or our policy discussions. So I believe that bias has, even though it's supposed to be a negative, it also influences some positive, actions as far as counter arguments are concerned. So yes, for in politics, everybody has where their affiliations, and based on the affiliations, decide to join maybe your a platform that you align with their ideology to be able to shape their policies. So yes, that's something that we cannot do without. But in as much as they all happen, they are all in a way helping us to read more meanings into policy proposals and to see how best those policies can be translated into to affecting the general population as a whole.
Thinking along these same lines about politics and policy conversations on these online platforms, which platforms do you think are most influential right now?
Well, right now I think TikTok is taking over. TikTok is all over the place. Before it was Facebook, but now TikTok is not just all about entertainment and all that. Political issues are being discussed there, and everybody, like almost everyone, has a TikTok page now or TikTok whatever. So people just sit at the comforts of their homes, make political talk shows or maybe political videos, discuss policies, and before you realize it, those videos go viral. Everybody watches them. Everybody sees them. So now we can. I sit in the USA, but I know what is happening back home in Ghana, right? So people who were not formally exposed to platforms like TikTok are now exposed to TikTok, and they can now make videos because one thing, TikTok pays, you know, the platform pays. You make a video talking about politics, and at the end of the day, if your page is monetized, you get paid for it. Facebook does the same, right? Twitter too does the same. Twitter is not. I don't think Twitter doesn't pay, but a lot of political issues are discussed there. So, but with the payment system that is being introduced to TikTok and Facebook, a lot of things happen there, and that is where a lot of political issues are being discussed, and even politicians who maybe the younger generations have their followership there, and they're able to even influence voting decisions on those pages. Yes, voting decisions on those pages. I can tell you for a fact that our recent elections in Ghana, majority of the majority of the campaign was done on social media through Facebook and TikTok. People had different orientation towards maybe different parties all together simply because of the power of these social media handles. Those who have the power to speak, who can communicate their messages very well, found their way into the homes of people who, eventually decided either to vote for party A or party B. So yes, for now, to me, I think that Facebook and TikTok are really doing well, very well, in terms of shaping our political landscape and policies as well.
And also, apart from social media, because, for example, in some countries, maybe Instagram or Facebook are common. In some countries, also the other social media, other platforms are common. But we have also some platforms or websites, like, I don't know, you are familiar with them or not, like Your Priorities. It's a website that the people can go to the website and they can also upload some proposal. For example, this is my proposal about a specific policy, or we can do this for the city, for the country. And as I mentioned, all the people can leave comments or vote or not. And also, but here I think these websites maybe are less common in the US because there are some similar websites like Your Priorities or Decidi. These two are really good website for sharing your policy ideas. And usually you can see for many countries like Spain or France or many European countries, but these websites are more common. For example, if you go to the European website, you can see that people usually leave a lot of comments, debates, and all the people share their ideas about the policy and others' proposal. But in the US, I think you can see less comments. But still, if you check the website like Your Priority, usually fewer people upload their proposal or share their policy ideas. And I think we can inform more and more people because it can really help government influence policy making, and also increase legitimacy. So I think we can inform more and more people about this website because it's really easy to access. Most of the people have access to internet, so they can just share their policy ideas. They can just share their problems or concern, and the government can read the concern or topics. And also the researchers and scholars can do some research and found what are people concerned. So this website, I think, help a lot, help government, policymakers, and also the citizen. But we can inform more and more people to use these websites to share their ideas about different topic or issue that they have.
We could certainly use more rational policy-based platforms such as the websites you're describing in the US. Right? One concern I have about, and maybe perhaps this will be the last question I ask about social media, but when we're thinking about monetization, right? Because X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is now monetized. Right. All of these social media companies have monetization options
really?
for
Okay.
content makers to make money. My concern with that would be this. If someone wants to start an online platform with the goal of making money, the quickest way to get there would be to make the most, at least in the US context, make the most polarizing, hot topic based platform where you do not engage in rational conversation, but instead you engage in dirty politics, right?
Yeah.
Nothing constructive, but instead, you bash the other side and you just, kind of only see one side of the argument. Do you see this concern as legitimate on platforms across the world, or is this mostly just a US problem?
It's everywhere. Yes, people actually open, some open their pages specifically, maybe to denigrate a certain group of people or a certain political party. Yes. So theirs is just to whether the policy is good or what an opponent is saying is a good thing or not. No, they come with an attack. That certainly does not actually improve democracy. It is a very bad way to engage in politics or in any public discourse. Engaging, being paid, the fact that your handle is being monetized or you're getting money out of it at the end of the day doesn't mean that you should not engage in rational conversations that will impact society as a whole, right? So I think that some kind of censorship, will shape the social media platforms in order to encourage more constructive, engagement or discourse, so that instead of coming to engage in polarized topics that will only bring you the views and the comments to make the money, and apart from that, you won't contribute anything to the development of any nation. It's a bad thing. So yes, I think in as much as these platforms are there, are open to everyone to engage in and make some money, constructive discourse across the platforms will actually help our the global development and democracy as we all try, because it is not this is not a unique issue in the US. It is everywhere. It's everywhere. People capitalize on these forums, these platforms to you know uh, to engage in attacks. They come without facts to attack you without facts, attack a government without facts, without evidence. But because, they say freedom of speech and all that, but the freedom of speech is being abused lately on through these platforms, which is not helping our democracy, which is not helping global development, and it is not helping global politics and policies as well.
Yes, I also think that it's the problem across all the board, not in the US. Because some people just use it just to make money, and they just create an account. They just encourage people to make comments just to make money. And I think it's just problem across the board, not in the US. Yes, as a whole, social media has its own bias.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Well, it is certainly a breath of fresh air to be speaking to two people who have, as a whole, a more optimistic outlook about the power of social media, the power of AI to influence politics in a positive manner. Because a large majority of people take kind of the alternative perspective, right, of the dangers of social media, the dangers of AI. And it's funny in a way, because if you go back 10 years, when we're thinking about what policy conversations are going to dominate global politics for the next decades, everyone or most people thought it was probably going to be climate change or issues related to the environment. That being the issue of our time that required global shared governance. Now, I think climate change is receiving a lot less attention, and a lot of people view AI, artificial intelligence, as being the issue of our time. I'm curious if you could weigh in on this matter. What do you think the quote unquote issue of our time is? What's going to dominate policy conversations at the global and state level for the next 10 years, 20 years?
Well, I think, yes, like you mentioned, AI is not something that is going to be forgotten in the near future or soon. Yes, AI is doing well, really helping us shape a lot of things that we would have found very difficult to do. Now, with the presence of AI, the health systems have actually improved. Yes, AI has improved the health system. It has also even improved learning and teaching, even though there are the bad sides of AI, which I believe authorities are still working on it to ensure that it doesn't badly affect, the education sector. But that being said, I believe that AI is really very powerful in terms of healthcare delivery. Without AI, a lot of people, we are going to lose a lot of people every day on daily basis. But with the invention, with the increasing innovative ideas coming out from AI, um, uh, the health sector is actually able to diagnose very complicated diseases that wouldn't have been possible to diagnose without the use of AI. So I think AI has come to stay and AI will still go a long way. So in the next 10 years, AI will still be discussed as how it is even going to be improved, not only in the health sector, but in other industries, different industries altogether. Now we have robots working in factories and all that. We have cars in the US here that are driverless. So you see, so that is the power of AI. Very eventually, even though it is going to affect other aspects of the industry, as let's say the driverless cars, Ubers eventually will have a problem. An Uber driver maybe in future would have to lose his job simply because the market has been transitioned to a driverless vehicle um, orders. So an Uber driver may not necessarily have to sit in the car or wait for someone to order to, request a ride for them to go to job. So that is something that is going to affect some job markets, but in a way also, you know, helping sanitize maybe congestions in the cities. We are still talking about climate change. Climate change. We are talking about um, clean energy. So that with the clean energy, AI is actually developing powerful cars that are moving from gas to electric, and that is the power of AI. So with that, we are still helping or still discussing climate issues with that related to our environment. The Clean Air has an act here in the US, the Clean Air Act. And all this will go a long way to shape the Clean Air Act if eventually we have more electric cars in the system than cars that consume fuel, that will at the end of the day pollute our environment and disturb our health. So I think that AI is something that is still going to be in the political discourse for a very long time. And that's notwithstanding, it is also going to influence other aspects of our political discourse. Like I mentioned, the climate change or climate discourse, environment discourse, and other industries. So I would place, if I were to have maybe a scale of preference in this on this topic, I would say that AI stands above the rest of them because AI is able to pull the rest of them up with a lot of inventions through AI. AI can actually solve the problems of climate. It can solve our different industrial problems if it is used wisely. AI can shape our education system if it is used wisely because AI actually helps people to learn these days more effectively and efficiently. Professors are able to work more effectively and efficiently using AI, even though you and I know the bad side of it. Yes, with that, I believe that it is a policy issue that the developers of the tools will have to work on. If you are thinking of um you are thinking of sanitizing the education sector so that many students will not indulge themselves in using AI negatively to cheat in exams and what have you, then it has to be addressed as a policy issue from where the tool is being developed. I believe there should be a way for them to sanitize that sector to enable to ensure that the tool is not used, is not being abused in any industry at all. In any industry at all. So yes, in as much as the bad sides are there, I believe the good sides are more enormous.
Yes, I also agree that uh, in previous years, usually the people talk about some important issue like climate change, environment, and now personally, I think we can see less. And usually the people talk about the AI instead of immigration or climate change and environment. But as a whole, I'm really uh, optimistic about it because I know that, as you also mentioned, for example, in education, there are some disadvantage. There are some, for example, the people or the students can cheat with the
Yeah,
use of AI, and there are some problems. And here we also talk about the concern or problems like the privacy or lack of fairness or maybe lack of human oversight. I think we shouldn't just use AI. AI can assist human. If we
yeah,
just if we I think both of them are important, human and AI. Because
yeah.
if there is a lack of human oversight, we will have some problems. And usually in our research, for example, if I'm also working about the use of AI in nonprofit sector, and many researchers publish a lot of papers about the use of in nonprofit sector. Now we say, okay, we can use AI, and all the people agree that we can use AI and we should use AI because it's much easier. It's really helpful. But how we should solve these problems or concerns? For
Hmm.
example, we should be more transparent. We should have more transparency. We should inform other people that we are using AI. So I think I know that there are some problems and concern, but I'm optimistic because I think we should think about this concern and this problem and how we can solve these problems. For example, we can adopt some policy or we should be more transparent with people that we use AI in nonprofit sector or in um, the public administration. The employee or public employee can say we use AI, but how we can use it or how we can overcome. This is, I think, that especially the or the topic this year would be how we can overcome the concern that's come from the use of AI. Like, as I mentioned, lack of human oversight. It's one of the
Mm.
problems.
Yeah. Yes, I support that. I believe, yes, I think AI, the policies surrounding the use of AI should be, the designers should have a relook, yes, to ensure that it doesn't negatively affect human, labor.
Yes.
Because yeah, if we don't take care, then we are going to depend largely on AI to the neglect of human resource, which is not a good thing.
Yes.
So there should be a balance between, the human resourcefulness and the effectiveness of AI. So in that way, coordination will be very, very effective, and people will learn how to use the tools even more effectively. The
Yes.
tool should be something that is supposed to help human beings work more efficiently, but it shouldn't be a thing that will actually affect us negatively to the point of maybe relegating human resource to the background and taking over. That way, it it will not really be good.
Yes.
It will not really be good to the whole world. So AI, the tools should be looked at more closely to see how they don't override, they don't overtake human resource, but work hand in hand with human resource to for better engagement.
Yeah, you really made a good point. We should just balance between human and AI. We shouldn't
Yeah,
just only depend on AI.
yeah, no.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
International relations scholars talk about a multipolar world in which different global hegemons compete for influence throughout the globe, right? You can see this right now in the conflict between China and the United States, for example. And so when we're thinking about something such as AI, with these large states trying to influence other states under their ideological umbrella, is there a concern that with the further development of AI, states won't cooperate? Instead, they will try to hoard resources, hoard data, hoard scholarly work to try to develop their own AI systems and prevent that information from being spread and shared globally. So while I admire the optimism about AI, how serious do you take the threat of conflict regarding states and trying to develop AI quicker than another powerful state?
I think it's really a very serious topic of concern because this hegemonic competition is getting out of hand. Every country wants to, you know, have their ability to dominate in, in one sector, especially maybe in AI. China is doing everything to dominate. The US won't give China that opportunity to dominate. So yes, now it's going to be a very serious um power tussle in terms of that area, because the Chinese are developing things that they wouldn't want the US to even know that they are developing. The US also actually has things that nobody knows that they have, except maybe the time where when it's necessary for them to use it. Recently, um, only got to know about certain things in in the military power of certain countries because of the recent wars and things that are happening, right? So unless something happens, you might not be able to really tell the capability of one state. But with the discourse, the dominating discourse of AI, I think the world would have been a better place if countries rather collaborated, to developing AI tools that will be beneficial to every country in the world, rather than trying to dominate one another. In having the mindset or perspective of dominating against your opponent, that is where um, many countries will begin to develop dangerous tools, dangerous weapons that will be capable of destroying the whole world. So what is the essence if, in trying to improve on AI, a country develops an AI tool that will monitor, that will have the whole world, have the world data. So if I have your data, I can use your data to manipulate you. You understand? But if it is an open thing that brings collaboration, that encourages collaboration, encourages countries to work together, I believe China and US, if they come together to work together, I believe China and US alone can, take care of the whole country, the whole world, because they have the capability. The manpower is there, the human resource is there, the brain power is there. Yes, and with that, other countries can learn from these leading countries. So we have smaller countries that are not, you look at the global south, you can't compare the global south to the global north. The difference is much. But the global south look more up to the global north in terms of innovations, in terms of a lot of things. So if countries are not working are not collaborating in this way, it will be a very bad blow, a very bad effect on the global stage, the global innovation, global economy, and all that. So domination should not be, or hegemony should not be, our point of discussion, but collaboration instead should be something that can move the world forward.
Yes, I also agree with you that this can be result in some concern because some countries do not collaborate with each other, do not share the data. They just want to hold the data, and it can result in some really negative outcome. But I think also there are some good examples in which the countries usually collaborate with each other. For example, also because most of the European countries are close to each other, they usually collaborate with each other in the use of AI. They adopt some policy, they provide some framework about how they can share the data, how they can use the data or use the AI. And I think we can also look at these countries, how they collaborate together. But I think as a whole, I think there are some good examples. Most of the countries collaborate together to provide some global policy or some comprehensive framework, which also comprehensive framework which also solve the problems of use of AI. So
Yeah.
I think there are some good examples that the countries can collaborate to get together, and we can look at these countries. But still, I think it can have some negative outcome. Because some countries maybe do not share the data or do not collaborate with each other.
If you could make one change at any level, an individual state, international governance, if you could make one policy change, it's a big question, but what would that policy change be?
Well, I think the issue of equality and participation in decision making is very important. Giving the opportunity to people or listening to divergent opinions helps shape our policy direction. But in the case that people's voices are not heard, people are not given the opportunity to tell their side of the story, and decisions are just made on their behalf and made for them, I believe that is not a good thing. So, in my little corner, if I were given the opportunity to propose a policy or to champion a policy, I would say that, you know, uh, equal political engagement and giving the opportunities to people to really contribute to whatever political discourse or policy discourse that we have should be encouraged. Participation at all levels is very important. We see at different, even at the government level, we have this the discriminations are there, even in gender. Gender inequality is there everywhere. In the US here, it is there. All over the world, it is there. You go to Congress, the number of men that are in Congress, you can't compare them to the number of women that are there, right? We go to various institutions, we have job stratification, where there are certain jobs that are there for women, and there are other jobs that are there for men, you know, which is it's not a healthy thing that encourages competition. So I think that if policies should be looked at more carefully, as if I am given the opportunity, I would propose that equal participation in terms of decision making should be encouraged. So that way, we are all given the opportunity to tell our perspectives, to contribute in one way or another towards shaping a policy or formulating a policy. So in the long run, the long term effect will be that majority of the people who took part in the decision making won't be satisfied with the decision, with the policy that eventually gets rolled out for public benefit. But if as a few selected people are given the opportunity to make decisions, on behalf of the rest of the people who were not even given the opportunity to say one or two words to contribute to the final decision that would eventually be made, I think that is not a very fair thing in society. So I believe equal opportunities, citizen participation, and accountability is are something that I would like to engage in. And of course, my research is tailored around that area, where I look at governance, institutions, accountability, transparency, you know. Yeah. So all those ones factor into service delivery. Whatever service that you are giving, you give the service with optimum, to ensure that people have their optimal satisfaction. You give the service with with the mindset that if you don't do it very well, you'll be held responsible for that, and you have to account for your stewardship. So that way, if opportunities are given to people to freely express themselves in terms of decision making, governance will be properly done, and the political discourse um, uh, uh, will be a good place for us to always try to engage in.
Yes, I also agree with you that citizen engagement in policymaking is really important because it can increase legitimacy, democracy, and transparency. All people should also engage in policymaking. I'm also care about, beside citizen engagement, I also care about maybe health sector if I could change it, because I think we should provide more health healthcare for all people, because I know that in many countries maybe it's so costly and expensive. And if I could change one policy area, I think maybe I focus on health sector, because I think we should provide more healthcare system, more better and healthcare or education even for all the people, especially the people who are less advantaged compared to other people. As you also mentioned, that all people should be equal, and we should provide better healthcare or education for all the people, especially the people who are, for example, less advantaged compared to other people. But still, I think citizen engagement is really important in policy making. And we can do it through several ways, how the people can engage in policy making to also increase democracy.
One final question, and this is something I ask anyone who comes on for conversation. Given that both of you are interested in going into academia, working in the classroom, spending time in seminar with students, what can we all do to foster better, respectful dialogue where we truly prioritize listening instead of yelling at one another?
Well, for me, I believe that listening more, it's more important in a conversation than trying to overtalk your opponent, or maybe yes. So conversations should not be an argument to win. I don't believe in that. But the discerning uh, um, the discerning engagement that you have with your opponent, you're able to listen and understand what the person is talking about. You're able to give the person the room to express themselves. It's more important. That way, once the person freely, you give the opportunity for the person to freely express themselves, you're also able to comment on issues more constructively. Right. So I believe that, yeah, um, for us to have better engagements as far as our discourse at any level is concerned, we should be more interested in listening to one another more than maybe trying to talk over our opponent to win debates. No, the goal should not be about winning the debate, but the goal should be about how each person walks away with a reflection. What did I gain from this conversation that I had with Daniel or Niki? That should be what I should be able to reflect on. The positive part of it. Definitely you will pick up something that was very interesting and would shape your life forever. So I believe that uh, uh, our everyday discussions we have with friends and families should not always be based on, all right, yes, I am always the one who wins the debate. No, it shouldn't be like that. It should be a balance sheet where I walk away happy, reflecting on what we discussed, and you walk away happy. So that way, the next time you meet me, you are able to, you are willing to stand and spend a minute with me. But if you over talk, like you don't give me the opportunity to talk, the next time I say I will try to avoid you. That will not build a healthy discussion session between you and your friends or your counterparts. So I would encourage that people um are discerning enough to give opportunity to people to express themselves when they are engaging in discourse. That will translate into even our political discourse. That will translate into our policy discourse. But if you know we don't have the habit of giving people the opportunity to express themselves, even at the political level, we will try to suppress people. We will try to you know deny people the opportunity to contribute to policy making, which in the long run will not help everyone. So, discerning, conversations are very important. Very discerning conversations are very important to me.
Yes, I also agree that we should prioritize listening because I think we are from different background, we have from different educational background, we are maybe from different countries, or maybe we have different political opinions. So we are different. So I think we shouldn't yell at somebody because if we do that, no one express their ideas, and we should respect each other. We should build a respectful dialogue. And also, I think, as I mentioned, people are really different, and we should just respect each view. I think we shouldn't erase our difference because we are
Yeah.
different. We shouldn't erase our difference or convince other people. I think we should
Yeah.
just hear other people and think about that views, and we can ask some question about, for example, what is your idea about this, or what shapes your idea about in that way. We can just ask some question, but we shouldn't just convince people, erase these difference between us, because I think it's beautiful things that we are different, we have different opinion in the same topic, and we should just listen to each other and learn from each other.
What brilliant answers, right? Our differences are beautiful, and
Yes.
I feel as though I've learned more from this conversation. I'm learning just as much as the audience by talking to two brilliant scholars. So it's been a privilege having you both on. And if you are watching or listening to this, please do remember peace, love, and understanding to our guests. Always give those you disagree with a presumption of grace. They're coming at you from a human perspective, not the worst perspective. Niki, Elvis, it's been such a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. It was great coming
It-
on your show too. Thank you for the opportunity.
yes, it was great to talk with both
Yeah,
of you.
yeah, it's really a
Thank you.
great show. Yeah, thank you.